Welcome and thank you for joining us for the second half hour of The Factor Uncensored tonight. What do you do when you have a bad reaction to face fillers? Angie Zartler says she received injections of a filler back in 2016. Things seemed fine until 2022 when she says she felt hard pea-sized lumps all over her face. As a result, she's been spending the last year and a half having the filler removed from her face. The product is FDA approved and not cheap. Prices for it can range anywhere between $1,000 to $4,000. Joining us to talk about it, Angie Zartler and plastic surgeon Malik Cuddy. Glad to have you here both on The Factor. When you realized something was going wrong, how did it feel? What happened?
Well, thank you for having me.
Absolutely.
It was physical. There were lumps all over my face. So I went back to the physician who did the filler and I asked him what's going on, and he said this can happen. And I said, well, what's going on? And he said, well, it's the resin that was part of the filler. And I said, well, I thought it was collagen. And he said, well, no, there's a resin in it, and the collagen's dissipated, and now your body's having a reaction to the resin. And resin is basically plastic. And so I found myself with these pieces of plastic that my body reacted to and basically encapsulated. And after 400, 500 injections of steroids in my face over a year and a half, I had to resort to having it cut out of my face.
Wow, physically cut out.
I've had 4 surgeries, 12 hours worth, and we've cut out about 17 to 18 pieces, and unfortunately he'll never be able to get it all because some of it is too close to my facial nerves and can cause some paralysis. Worse than that, my ANA, which is an anti-inflammatory antigen, is extremely high, and I'm not sure if I'll ever be able to get that down.
And how did it feel when you realized it was lumping up? Was it uncomfortable, or could you just feel it and like something's wrong here?
Would you like to feel it?
Sure.
Please do.
Oh yeah, I can feel it there.
Yes.
Lumps in your face, yeah.
Yes, and then they're permanent. He can't cut some of these out because it's too close to my facial nerves.
And how does that leave you feeling, knowing you will be stuck with that?
The scary part is we don't know the long-term effects, and I'm here to just bring awareness. These fillers, it's the only permanent filler out there. It's basically collagen and PMMA, and people need to understand the dangers of doing this. It's expensive to remove it. Insurance doesn't pay to remove it, and we don't know what the long-term effects are from, you know, what it does to your body.
Let's bring in Dr. Cuddy. Are you surprised by this, or have you heard this occurring before? And is it a reaction that Angie had, or it can happen to anyone?
Well, it can happen, really it can actually happen with any filler, but the likelihood of it happening is very low with other types of fillers. And when you have a filler that has something in it that's permanent, this particles are just going to be sitting there forever, and eventually you can get an inflammatory reaction. What's happening here sounds like something called a granuloma, which is an inflammatory nodule that you get, and you can treat it with steroids and removal, but the likelihood of that happening with other fillers is very low. And personally, I don't inject things that are permanent into people's faces. One of the other substances is silicone. Silicone is a permanent liquid, basically, that's injected, function as a filler. But that also can cause problems similar to what happened here. And it's not, I wouldn't say it's uncommon. You know, if you say something has an incidence of 5% of happening, which I think in the neighborhood of that is a couple of % of people will get a granuloma. But generally, those people don't get granulomas all over their face. You know, you may get a few. But for the person who gets it, it's 100%. You know, it doesn't matter to them that it's 4%.
Right.
You know, it's just...
It's 100% to them.
For them, yeah, it's 100%. And then...
Have you had an occasion to have to remove these?
Sure. Yeah, and with similar products, but also with silicone. And silicone is very common. And, you know, I think what's important for people to realize is they can advocate for themselves. If you're having something injected into your body, When you're having surgery, people tend to ask a lot of questions because they're scared of having surgery, but you're still having an intervention done here, even if it's something as simple as a filler. And you should ask, what are you injecting? You know, a lot of people don't think to ask. They hear filler, and they think it's just some generic substance that you put in under your skin and it fills in the grooves and makes you look great, without thinking that there are a lot of different materials that you can inject. Some of them are great and never cause problems, and some of them can really cause a lot of problems. So you really need to ask, what are you injecting?
And Angie, what would be your advice as we wrap this up to people out there who may get these fillers?
Well, you should very thoroughly read the consents, and you should understand what's being injected in your face. I was told it was collagen, and that wasn't the truth. It was more than collagen. So you have to do your own due diligence, and to his credit, what he said is you have to advocate for yourself. And I should have done a better job. I wish I wouldn't have done it. And I hope other people think really hard about it before they do it. It is a lifelong consequence.
All right. Well, we want to thank you for sharing your story.
Thank you.
And, of course, helping others out there because people don't have a second thought about getting fillers. They think it's not a big deal. Let's just do it. But your reality could be their reality. And we want to thank you for sharing it here on The Factor.
There are tons of people on Facebook and some other websites. I'm not the only person in this situation, and I'm lucky. People are more deformed than I am.
All right. We want to thank you for your time. Appreciate it.